We are pleased today to have Colonel John Bolduc with us. Colonel Bolduc currently serves as the Superintendent of the Nebraska State Patrol, and he oversees the operations, the activities of some 700 officers and staff who are spread across the state. Colonel Bolduc came to us from San Diego, where he served as the Chief of Police of the Unified Port of San Diego. And prior to his service in San Diego, he spent nearly 25 years in the field of law enforcement in various capacities in the state of Minnesota, including time as the chair of the Minnesota Board of Peace Officers Standards and Training. I was going to tease the Colonel about coming to lovely, warm Nebraska after San Diego. What were you thinking? But he spent 25 years in Minnesota, so he probably knew what he was getting into.
Exactly.
Colonel.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Well, thanks, everybody, for having me here today. Normally, when I speak to a crowd, they're not this friendly, so I'm really glad to be here. Let me get a feel for my audience today. So who do we have here? So everybody's a student, right? Okay. How many seniors do we have here? Okay. Well represented. Did I mention we were hiring? Okay, and we will be for the next 5 years. How many juniors do we have here? Okay, a couple. All right, do you let sophomores out of class at all? Or there? Okay, we have a few sophomores. Any freshmen? Okay, outstanding. All right, great. Well, it wasn't that long ago that I was a student too. That's not true. It was a long time ago. But I was a criminal justice student at Bemidji State University. Anybody heard of Bemidji? All right. Go Beavers. Yes, Beavers dominate, right? So when I moved to California, they heard that some guy from Minnesota was going to be their police chief out there. And they were kind of like, we're getting who? From where? And I showed up and, oh, okay, I'm the guy. And they're like, well, where did you go to school? Bemidji State University. And they're like, Bajimmy? What? They couldn't pronounce it, you know. So they're like, well, that's a strange name. I said, what? That's not a strange name. I said, that's Ojibwa. It's a Native American language. It's Ojibwa, and Bemidji means Harvard of the North. And they believed it. So people from Southern California are a little gullible. I don't know if you've ever met any of them. Oh, I should be careful of my audience. Anybody here from there? Okay, good. I'm safe then, right? All right. So I was a student just like you, and I was in the Criminal Justice Club. And the first time that I had ever traveled a great distance, we wrote a paper, my partner and I, we wrote a paper on the defense of not guilty by reason of insanity, whether or not that was a deterrent to crime, and we studied several different states who had that defense. And we spent time actually at a state hospital researching some historical records. I realized then that was a place I didn't want to hang out at very long. And so we got to travel to Las Vegas to present our paper, and it was the first time I'd ever been that far away from Minnesota. But it afforded me a lot of opportunity to see different things. So I applaud you all for going the extra step. You're not just students, but is everybody here in the Criminal Justice Club, or many of you? None of you? Okay, sign up. Where do they sign up? Okay. Now, it's really great to be involved because you learn a lot of things outside of just what's happening in the classroom. And I also applaud you for being voluntold or volunteering to come today. The more that you can expose yourself to different ideas and ask questions, and I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions a little bit later. Actually, you can interrupt me anytime you want. I try to keep it low-key and try to keep it conversational, okay? So again, I appreciate you all coming here. So here's who we are and what we do. This is our mission statement at Nebraska State Patrol. And a mission statement is really important in organizations because it is kind of a promise. This is our promise to what we're going to do. Okay? We promise to provide, we shall provide, law enforcement of the highest quality to ensure a safe and secure Nebraska. That's the promise, right? Okay, now how we do that, there's a lot of different ways that we do that. But we have that. Anybody speak Latin here? No? Okay, then I can just make up whatever I want, right? No, pro bono publico, it's for the good of the public. That's what we do. We're public servants. When I talked to a group of troopers yesterday, about 50 of them in a room, and some of them 2 years on the job, some of them kind of old codgers like me, 30 years in a job. Why did you guys get into law enforcement? Every single person in that room would say, we want to help people. We want to serve. We want to solve problems, right? That never goes away. Now, when you've been in this job for many years, it's normal to get a little cynical, right? So you got to kind of combat that, because it always goes back to the beginning. Why did we get into this job? We want to help people. We want to serve. So remembering what we do and who we do it for is very important every day. That's on our website. It's on our letterhead. It's on our business cards, for the good of the public. We can't remember, or we can't substitute that for we're in this to make money, because the pay is okay. You can raise a family on it, but you're not going to get rich doing this job. We don't do it for that. We don't do it because we're on some ego kick, although you might have seen some law enforcement officers who that's kind of how they operate. We don't want to hire those folks. Okay? We want people who have the heart of a servant who wants to go and serve for the good of the public. Okay? So let's talk about, there's kind of a dichotomy that exists between how law enforcement was 31 years ago when I started and kind of how it is today in terms of public perception. And I want to touch on that. But this is the interactive part of the presentation. Okay? There's some images up there. All right? Cool. Cop car, Dodge Charger by a lake. It's kind of cool, right? We have a commercial vehicle enforcement here. We have some of our troopers here. So what do you see? You see images like that? Now this is the interactive part. Tell me some words that you think of when you see those images. Ticket. Ticket. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think I know how you drive. Okay. All right. No. Okay. Ticket. Yeah. Right. What else? Deterrence. Yeah. That's a visible deterrence. When you see those cars, do you speed up? Right? Do you start, oh, I'm a perfect driver, right? Everybody gets religion when they see the cops, right? Okay. What else do you see? Other images? Safety. Safety. Okay, good. Somebody have a hand up over here? Yeah, I was going to say protection. Protection, yeah. You feel safe, right? Okay. What else? Professionalism, thank you. That's my favorite, actually. Okay. I showed this to our troopers yesterday, and I asked them the same questions. What do you see? So the audience of troopers, what do you see? Professionalism, diversity. Folks are squared away. They look good. They look competent, right? Okay. Now, when I show that to members of the community like yourselves, okay, here, ticket. Be careful, right? All right. I'm glad I heard professionalism. That's our standard. That's our expectation, that we will treat our citizens with professionalism, courtesy, respect all the time. No. Are we perfect? No. Do we get that right 100% of the time? No. Because we only can hire human beings, right? Human beings, I don't know, last you checked, not perfect, right? Can you have a bad day? Can you be crabby? Can you treat a customer poorly? Yeah. Yeah, that happens. It even happens to us, okay? But we're striving for that professionalism. Now, here's my favorite. If you're a bad guy or a bad girl, you're a criminal, you're a drug runner, you're whatever. What do you see when you see these images? What do we want to project if you're Mr. and Ms. Bad Guy out there? Jail? Yeah. Yeah, what? If you're smuggling dope, say you're smuggling fentanyl. You guys all heard of fentanyl, right? Some nasty stuff. Killing 160 people a day in this country. It's like a 737 crashing every day. That's a problem, right? It's nasty stuff. All right? So you're smuggling that through our state, and there are people who are doing that. What I want them to see is, we got trouble. The professionals are here. The competence, right? The professionalism. Okay? So, let's see what else we got here. Okay? Here, this is my vision. So I'm new. I came here several months ago. There was a lot of, how do I phrase it? There was a lot of attention on the State Patrol last year. I don't know if you guys read the newspaper. I don't believe all that stuff, right? But we had a lot of attention. The previous person who was in my job got fired. A lot of folks got disciplined. There was some stuff that went wrong. Some people didn't follow the rules. And the community was like, hey, what's going on there? We're skeptical. We got a bunch of jokers working there? I mean, hey, come on, you guys. So we had a lot of bad press, right? The good news is that it was a very small percentage of folks who made some mistakes. Some of those folks are no longer employed. But it really caused a lot of skepticism among our customers, you all, right? So lo and behold, I decide, my family, my kids, after college, they settled here in the Midwest. I have a son in Kansas, a daughter up in Minnesota. And if they had settled on the West Coast, we probably would have stayed out there. By the way, hanging out at the beach is really awesome if you haven't been out there. The weather in San Diego is way better than here, but here is way better than Minnesota, where I spent most of my life, okay? You guys ever been up to Minnesota in January? If you haven't, don't go there, okay? Yeah. You can't raise your hand very high because it's frozen off, right? Yeah, I get it. I've been there. So I came and I said, here, everyone wants to know, what does the new colonel think? What is his expectations, okay? So I'm talking to my troopers, I'm talking to the community, I'm talking to my bosses, the governor, the legislature, all those folks, all have a vested interest in what are you going to do to make things better? So here's three things. And somebody said it when I showed the first images. High visibility disrupts and prevents crime. That's called diligent law enforcement. If we're doing our thing every day, stopping cars, arresting bad guys, serving the community, that's a very visible task. Those are all visible tasks. And when the community sees that, they're like, hey, okay, we're getting our money's worth, right? I mean, I work for the public, right? Now, I might take my marching orders from the governor, but I work for you all, and all of our troopers work for you all, right? Okay, compassionate professional service increases public trust. When I started in 1986, none of you were even born then, right? Okay, that's really frightening. All right. When I started hiring people that were older than younger than my kids, I started to get a little weirded out, okay? But I'm over it, okay? But in 1986, when I started, there was no social media, right? Everybody actually read newspapers, right? Occasionally watched like the 5 channels that you had on television. Well, we had cable then, but nobody could afford it where I lived, all right? So instant communication that didn't exist, all right? Now if somebody sees an officer doing something good or bad, it's immediate, right? Twitter. I'm actually on Twitter. What a joke, right? Yeah. I had a lot of help. At first my son was like, no, Dad, no. That's not how it works. Well, I got to do this Twitter tweet thing, No, Dad, no. So he's actually a marketing director, so that's what he does, okay? So he had to give me some tips on that. By the way, he graduated from Kansas State University, just down the street there. Okay, boo, big rivalry. Well, it used to be until you guys moved over to the Big Ten. Now you're fighting with the Gophers, right? That's one of my other favorite teams. I digress, all right? So public trust. When we do the right stuff, people know about it. They tweet about it. They put it on Instagram. Well, nobody uses Facebook anymore, right? You guys still use Facebook? Only your parents use Facebook, I know. So that communication goes viral. Oh, what about the bad stuff? Okay? You ever seen any video of cops doing something bad? Yeah, that's a problem, okay? Not the fact that it's come to light, and that there have been officers who have done really terrible things, even commit murder, racist attitudes, treating people with disrespect. Absolutely, that stuff goes viral. That broad brushes the entire profession. The last 5 years, major hit to public confidence in law enforcement that hasn't been lost on us, okay? However, so how do you combat that, okay? How do you combat people saying all cops are bad, right? Well, one encounter at a time. Compassionate service, act in a way that's trustworthy. So these are my expectations. These are everybody's expectations of law enforcement. So when we do provide compassionate service, it increases public trust. Okay, teamwork. I'm a big fan of teamwork. We have 750 employees at the State Patrol. 482 of those are sworn officers. So I have 300 and so civilians who, everything from sweeping the floor to doing highly technical work in our crime lab, trying to figure out whose DNA this is so that we can hook them up on this crim sex caper or this murder or whatever. And by the way, they do the crime lab work for the entire state. So a rural sheriff's office out in western Nebraska is doing a criminal investigation. They package up that evidence, they send it to us. Our scientists in our crime lab figure out that evidence, make a report, fly out there, testify in court, get the person convicted. Okay, so from soup to nuts, everything that you might see on TV, although be careful, we do all that stuff, all right? So all those employees serve a very important job. Now, those people in the crime lab, they're down here in Lincoln doing casework from all over the state. They might not even know some of those troopers whose cases they're working, or police officers in small towns whose case they're working. But that's the teamwork that's required to do this thing that we call public service, okay? Teamwork, very important. Okay, here's a quiz. Here's some bad guys, okay? Who's this joker up here in the upper, see, your left, my right. Okay, who's that guy? Anybody recognize him? Timothy McVeigh. Who's heard of Timothy McVeigh? Okay, what's he notorious for? Oklahoma City bombing, right, 1995. Wait, again, before some of you were born, right? Oh, that's really frightening. Okay, the reason I got his picture up here, this is in the middle of the country, Oklahoma City, right? He killed 168 people, including I think it was 32 children who were in a daycare in the front of this building, right? He's some kind of anti-government nut job. That's not a technical term, that's just my thing, okay? And he decides he's going to get back at the government somehow, and he's going to blow up the federal building. 168 people were killed. So, do we have terrorism in the middle of the country? Yeah, we do, right? But what's cool about this is, how did he get busted? Anybody know? Sure. Yes. What's more significant about it, it was a state trooper driving down the road, doing his thing. Joker's got no front license plate, right? Pulls him over for a traffic violation. He doesn't know that he just murdered 168 people. Pulls him over, doing his thing. Starts talking to the guy. He's all sweaty, he's nervous, he's acting weird. And he sees he's got a gun in the car. Oh, no bueno, right? Pulls the guy out, pats him down. He's got no permit for that gun, for a handgun. He arrests him, puts him in the pokey, right? FBI is working their thing, ATF, Oklahoma City, they're bam, bam, bam. Hey, we know who did this, Timothy McVeigh, state trooper. We already got him in jail, right? Because he was doing his thing, doing their job, diligent law enforcement, right? In fact, most terrorist attacks that have been subverted in this country since September 11th, 2001, have been cops on the street doing their job, interrupting, detecting, disrupting terrorist attacks, or stopping it through intelligence sharing, finding out, hey, this person's planning a bad thing, and they go and they grab them before it happens. So diligent law enforcement will stop terrorism, and it has stopped terrorism. How about down here? Anybody recognize this scene? This is a blue Nissan Pathfinder. If I had a laser pointer, I'd point right at it. Some of us carry laser pointers on our guns, but that would be rude if I took it out and pointed at that, okay? So I won't do that, all right? So that's a Nissan Pathfinder. It's in, anybody recognize? Where is this? Where's all these lights and all these billboards? It's kind of hard to see, but anybody been to Times Square? New York City, Times Square? Yeah, that's where that is. So that Pathfinder, 2010, there's a bomb in there, a really sophisticated bomb that could kill thousands of people. A cop walking the beat, doing his thing. Hey, that's unusual. I'm going to check that out. And he looks, holy crap, there's a giant bomb in there. So they evacuate Times Square, and they bring in the fire department and the bomb guys, and they take the bomb apart, and they save thousands of lives. Diligent law enforcement, a cop on the street doing his or her job. I don't know if it was a his or her at that time. Just doing their thing, okay? Who's this handsome fella up here? Anybody recognize him? His name is Sayfullo Saipov. He rented a truck in New Jersey, went over to New York City, and he mowed down 18 people and killed them in a truck last year. What does he have to do with Nebraska? Nebraska State Patrol stopped this guy 4 times for driving a truck overweight. Wrote him a ticket over the last several years. Okay? He was a truck driver. He somehow became radicalized at some point. We don't know when that was. But he was stopped by troopers doing their thing. truck, overweight, failing to stop at the scale. Write him up. He's in the system, right? Diligent law enforcement every day. He kills all these folks over in New York. FBI does an investigation, and they're like, hey, we got to follow the trail where this guy's been. Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado. Oh, he's a truck driver. And they figure out, trace his route. West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, East Coast. Somewhere along the line, he connects with some radicals and decides that he's going to do his thing. Okay? Number one news story last year regarding Nebraska State Patrol. What do you think it was? Nebraska State Patrol mentioned in the news. Number one news story. The previous colonel getting fired, officers getting disciplined, you know. That was my guess, right? My social media guy's on it, right? Nope. This guy. Number one news story where Nebraska State Patrol was mentioned. Terrorist stopped and ticketed by Nebraska State Patrol 3 years ago. AP story carries worldwide. 2-1 over all the other stories that were regarding this agency. This gentleman here, this is timely because we had the school shooting in Florida a few weeks ago. Very tragic. Not the first time it's happened. So we talk about, did I mention social media guy? That's him. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, okay? Yeah. So this guy was another radical type guy, and he did not a school shooting, but he decided he was going to go shoot up a couple of recruiting stations in Tennessee, military recruiters. Not unlike some of the stuff that's going on here today, because he had some kind of beef, and he wanted to make a statement by doing that. Well, so that was treated as an active shooter, and that's been in the news a lot lately. Law enforcement response to active shooter didn't go so well down in Florida. We had some officers who didn't do what they were trained to do. You hear a guy shooting a place, you go in and you get him, right? Sounds pretty simple, right? But you have to train to that standard, you have to be equipped to that standard. The officers in this case in Tennessee, and I have a brother that lives in Tennessee, so this is a little close to home, they responded to that incident. The guy's shooting up the place, they show up, boom, take care of the guy. All right? Now, that didn't happen in Florida. All right. So that's the point of me bringing this up is the diligent law enforcement impacts stuff like speeders, like my friend over there. I'll just call you Leadfoot, okay? It impacts traffic safety, impacts crime, impacts something even as big as terrorism, which is kind of a frightening thing. Okay. So, the good news is, I forgot about this stuff. What is this up here? I hope you don't recognize it. Anybody missing anything? No. That's fentanyl. 37 pounds of fentanyl. Okay? So the DEA says last year in the fourth quarter of 2017, 163 people a day dying of overdose on fentanyl. Mostly in Ohio, New York, other states east of here. Okay? Really tragic. How many lives do you think that saved? We snagged 37 pounds of fentanyl from some guys trying to smuggle it across the country. I don't know, but that saved a bunch of lives because where that was going, people were going to die. Simple as that. Up here we have meth. You guys may not remember this, but when meth first came on the scene about 1995 to 2000, meth was manufactured and distributed across the country, mostly in rural areas. Kind of weird, right? Usually think of drugs associated with urban areas. Well, meth was being cooked. You heard of meth cooks, right? Anybody see Breaking Bad? See that series? Yeah, it's legit. They were actually very accurate with their portrayal of cooking meth, right? First time I did a meth lab raid, I was on a SWAT team in 1998, and they're like, yeah, these guys are cooking meth. And I'm like with cookie sheets? Or, I don't know. I'd never seen it before, right? So we boot this door down, we go into this barn out in the middle of nowhere in central Minnesota, and no kidding, there's a guy on a stove with a Bunsen burner cooking, he's cooking meth, right? He's got a loaded 45 sitting right in front of him. And I'm carrying a rifle. I've got about 6 pounds of pressure on the trigger, and I'm like, don't touch that gun, don't touch that gun. He reaches for it, and I'm like, safety off, I'm going to shoot this guy. And at the last second, he decides to go like this. I'm like, good decision, good boy, good decision. Okay, a lot less paperwork. But the guy, so they're cooking meth, right? There's a little cop humor, right? So these guys would manufacture meth like 6 ounces, 8 ounces at a time, all this trouble. They're stealing anhydrous ammonia, burning their faces off. Really a great career option, guys, right? I mean, just crazy stuff. To cook 6 ounces at a time and then cut it up and sell it by, by the gram, $40, $80, So that's how meth came into the United States back then. Now, we passed all these laws saying you can't buy the Sudafed, right? Anybody have a cold, go to the drugstore, hey, I need some Sudafed. Sign here, let me see your driver's license. What? That's why that started. Because they're going and buying all this meth precursor, making it, selling drugs. Okay. Meth makes you crazy, by the way. It screws up your brain, makes a bunch of holes in your brain. Nasty stuff, so don't do it. But now they manufacture by the ton in Mexico and other parts of Central America, and then they ship it across the border. Where I used to work was down on the border, and we figured we're stopping about 7% of the drugs smuggled across the border. The other 93%, it's all over here, coming right through here. This year, our budget for Department of Health and Human Services, out-of-home placements for children, meaning foster care, we have to go take kids out of a home, put them in foster care. We're going to blow that budget by 20% just because of meth. Hasn't gone away. It's a huge problem in our community. So, what do I do about it? Troopers, go stop this stuff before it gets to the community. Highly addictive, is ruining families, causing children to be taken away from homes because their parents are screwed up on meth. It's a big problem. Okay, what do we got down here? Oh, everybody's favorite, weed, marijuana. Yay, let's legalize it, yeah. Yeah, you know what I say to that? No. Go to Denver, right? Go downtown Denver today, right now. Walk around, right? You're going to see people your age laying on the street. They don't care. Marijuana causes apathy. I just made that up, right? But they're sitting around. They don't care. They're not productive. Their brains are screwed up. They're addicted. But it's legal, right? It's legal. It's cool, right? It's no different than beer. Right? Anybody remember the 90s? I'm getting on my soapbox now. Don't stop me. All right? Anybody remember the 90s? Tobacco, right? Tobacco. These tobacco companies are targeting youth of America. They're making advertising so that it's appealing to young people, right? And then young people are getting addicted to tobacco, and now they're having all these health problems, because smoking tobacco and causes cancer and all this stuff, right? All true, right? So we sued these big tobacco companies, and the government came in and said, you got to pay us off for all the healthcare damages that you caused, right? So the government extracted billions of dollars from the tobacco industry and redistributed it to the states for healthcare and stuff like that. That was in the 90s. And now we got states going, hey, we should let people smoke this stuff, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. So you might have a different opinion, but I think you know where I stand. It's a bad public policy. It's bad for your health, and it's bad for the community, because in Colorado and California, the lovely state that I came from recently, Washington, Oregon, some other states, they're finding a high percentage of young people who are no longer productive. They can't hold a job. They can't get a job, because a lot of jobs, you go to manufacturing, you're going to go drive a truck, drive a forklift. Guess what? Well, you got to pass the P test. Can't do it, right? So if they could get a job, they don't hold a job. Right? By the percentage, I know there's exceptions, okay? But what happens when a certain percentage of our population is no longer productive? Doing jobs, contributing tax money to, right? Well, we're going to make taxes on marijuana, right? It's all going out the back door for law enforcement and social services. It's a bad public policy. That's my opinion, not the official position of the state of Nebraska, okay? Down here, what's this? You ever want to know what $106,000 looks like? It looks like that. The drugs come east, the money goes west. Smugglers. That's drug money. Okay? I've seen where that drug money goes. Now you're like, hey, some guys are just trying to make a buck. All right? Can't fault somebody for being, creative and trying to make a living. But the problem is, where most of the drugs come from, the really nasty stuff. Let's just forget about marijuana for now, okay? Let's just talk about the nasty stuff. The fentanyl, the meth, the heroin, the coke. That's coming from other countries through Mexico, because that's right next door, right? And the drugs come up here because we have a demand for it. If we didn't have a demand for it, it wouldn't be a problem. But it creates the demand, the supply happens, the money goes back. But here's the problem with this money. It doesn't just go to do more drugs, to raise drugs, manufacture drugs. These are international criminal organizations, right? They're involved in kidnapping. They're involved in human trafficking. Okay, and I saw this firsthand where I used to work. So the human trafficking looks like this. You get some poor guy or some poor gal from, let's say, Guatemala. Guatemala's a rough spot, kind of controlled by gangs and criminal organizations. I want out, man. I want to go to the United States. Promise of a better life. Awesome. I'm all for that. That's cool. All right? So they will find not only their life savings, maybe several family members' life savings, and they will pay some guy who's a criminal to smuggle them into the United States. $7,000 was the price when I left. It's kind of like a money-back guarantee, but you never get your money back. So the mule, the criminal, who is operating based on drug money and other human trafficking, I'm going to take this guy, take his $7,000, and I'll get you across the border. I'll give you 3 tries. And if you don't make it, too bad. So here they go. Tijuana, hop on a jet ski, put the guy in the back. I'll go across the border to Imperial Beach. I push the guy off in the surf, and I go back to Tijuana. Okay? That's one way. Or I'll smuggle you into the hold of a sailboat or a cargo ship, and when you get to the port, you get arrested and you get sent back. Okay? 3 times for your $7,000. All right? Sometimes they're packing into trucks, and you just saw it on the news. 30 people in the back of a truck. Some of them died from being heat exhaustion, no water, bad stuff. Okay? They don't care about the people. There are people who are trying to smuggle themselves into this country for a better life. That's noble. That's cool. Okay? Now, I'd rather they got in line and filled out the paperwork and do it, and then they're good. They don't have to send them back, right? That's a whole different argument. The people taking advantage of those people are making money on it. They don't care about the people. They care about making money. Those are international drug trafficking and human trafficking organizations. So you use the meth, you pay the money, they smuggle the money down there, it grows the organization. It's a big problem. All right. So what do we do about it? Reduce the demand. Stop taking drugs. It'll make you crazy. It'll stop giving money to criminals, right? So that's the stuff. All right. Yes?
Were all those photos in Nebraska?
Yes. Yeah, well, not this. Yep, all of those were in Nebraska. Yeah, absolutely. The money was 2 weeks ago.
All of them were in the last 3 months.
Were they? See? The social media guy knows stuff. Yeah. No, Omaha was the fentanyl. Lincoln was the cash. Grand Island was the meth. And the weed, that's everywhere. Okay, yeah. So, great question. Yeah. What do we got here? Compassionate service. Guess what? Only in any law enforcement agency, I don't care where you go, only about 1/3 of what we do is actually criminals and crime, or arresting somebody, building a case, right? Only about 1/3 of what we do. 2/3 of it is service, right? You'd be amazed at what people, I used to be a municipal police officer in Minnesota, the things that they would call the cops for, all right? I don't understand how to get my washing machine to work because I'm looking at the book and I can't, really? You calling the cops for that? Right. But you know what? Sometimes we go, right? Oh, you got to plug it in, right? I mean, literally, people call the cops for all kinds of things. It's kind of crazy. But it's service. A broken down car on the side of the road. We do 500 of those a day, right? It's service, right? By the way, we have a lot of crashes in Nebraska, especially on the interstate. People laugh at me because I say freeway. It's all in the freeway. They're like, what? That's what they call it in California. So it's the interstate. So we had a terrible tragedy 2 weeks ago. A woman from South Carolina was driving somewhere to Colorado, I think, to visit relatives, and her car broke down. And it was a flat tire. Called a tow truck. Tow truck comes, great. And they're going to tow her car in to get it fixed. And she gets out, and she's going to go from the car to get something, to walk to the tow truck, and a semi crosses over the line, hits her and kills her. I mean, so our folks are dealing with death and destruction and tragedy every day. It's rough. This is supposed to be kind of a recruiting thing, okay? So it's not all bad news, all right? But those are things that are an element of danger. So this is a word, so I'm going to be parental for a minute. So if your car breaks down on the side of the road, go way over to the side and don't get out of it, okay? Help us out with that, all right? So service. Somebody gets in an accident, somebody's lost, somebody, get an Alzheimer's patient who walks away and they go out in the woods and we got to go find them. That's service, service, service. 2/3 of what we do is helping people. That's the good news. That's the best part about this job. You can go up, hug a trooper anytime you want, all right? Well, sometimes they're busy, but so just, be judicious about that. This is what I call intelligence-led policing. These are 4 components of it. And I'm going to nerd out on you for a minute. But these are 4 things that we need to be effective at using data to provide better service. Timely and accurate intelligence, rapid deployment of resources, effective tactics, and relentless follow-up. Okay? Relentless follow-up. By the way, you guys studying for final exams? Yeah, don't blow it off till the last minute, okay? Relentless follow-up, all right? So practice good habits now. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Go back here. So there's been a lot of study on intelligence-led policing, how to use data to make good decisions. Very contemporary, and we could geek out on this stuff all day. It's in the textbook. You guys probably got an A on that exam. Radcliffe's ILP model talks about developing enforcement strategies, targeting prolific and serious offenders. It ties into this. The crime triangle, remember this one. So you need 3 elements to have crime, right? You have to have an offender or a suspect, you have to have a location, and you have to have a victim. If we take away one of those, no crime, right? So we take away the location through that high visibility police presence. We show up, criminals tend to go the other place, right? Sometimes crime prevention is crime relocation, right? So we're just going to relocate it someplace else. Maybe it's not Kansas. Send it back to Colorado where it came from, okay? All right. If we educate victims how to make their home burglar-proof, how to be more aware of their surroundings, how to watch out for dangers, and they become a smarter citizen, they're less likely to become a victim, so we've taken that away, so no crime. Take away the offender, we'll arrest them and put them in jail. They won't commit any more crimes for that small period of time. Or we provide a deterrent, make it less lucrative to commit the crime. We take that away, okay? So there you go. 20% of the effort usually creates 80% of the output, right? That's Pareto. You guys have probably seen that before. That's true with criminals. It's true with drug smugglers. It's true with officers. 20% of our troopers make 80% of the arrests, okay? 20% of the students are going to produce 80% of the A's in the class, right? Not you guys, probably more than 80% get A's, right? All right. This is probably not as much interest to you guys, but we're trying to save time, save money, do things better, faster, stronger across state government. Here's the budget. The big blue, that's pay and benefits. There's not a whole lot of room to squeeze there, but in any city, state, other entity where you have public safety, police, fire, medical services, by and large, most of that cost is people. We don't have robots yet to do this job, so you got to hire people. And the rest is all administrative stuff, cop cars, things like that. But that's pretty common. So wherever you live, your government agency is going to be spending, that percentage on people. And this is the slide that's supposed to say, hey, you guys have any questions? But I forgot to put that on there. And I forgot to put a picture of me with my biggest fish. I was going to do that. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have based on that. Or you could go wild card anything else. Who's my favorite baseball team, anything like that. Minnesota Twins, of course.
I'll put you on the mic because you're being filmed. So.
Oh, no, now you tell
questions
me. Okay.
On the mic.
There was some top secret information on that presentation. No, there wasn't.
Well, none from you. I have one. Why are you hiring for the next 5 years?
Wow, yeah, great. So this is actually a nationwide opportunity and challenge right now. We have this big demographic bubble about the time when a lot of folks got into law enforcement, and they're all retiring. A lot of folks getting off because of retirement. And so we need to replace those folks. We have 46 vacancies right now, and I have about 13 people retiring this year. We normally can hire about 25 to 30 at a time. So according to my Minnesota math, let's see, yep, we're behind. So we're going to add 25 minus 13 is going to take us about 7 years to get caught up. All right, 5 if we increase the cycle time, right? So we're definitely looking for men and women, especially women, because we have a shortage of women in law enforcement, by the way. National average is 18% for municipal police departments. Last I checked, about the population split was 50-50 men and women, right? So we're a little short there. So we'd like to hire more women. In state police agencies like us, it's about 6 to 7%. The theories that I've heard as well, a lot of police agencies police more rural areas away from an urban center, and that's not as appealing to women. And I'm like, okay, that might be a good theory, but I'm not really sure that I don't know how much research has been done on it. But I would say, look, the reality is we need more women in law enforcement. So it doesn't mean we're not going to hire you guys, all right? But we definitely need to attract more women and more minorities. You know, my previous job in California, it was a very diverse population, especially in San Diego. So we had a diverse population base to draw from. It was a little bit easier. Nebraska, our demographics are different, but when you have an agency who's serving the public, you want to have the agency that represents the community that they serve. That's very important so that the people that we're serving can identify more with us, because there's enough that's different between law enforcement and community that the more that you can overlay that with similarities, the better off we'll be in connecting. So that's going to be a focus of ours as well. So pretty much nonstop hiring for the next 5 years. And oh, well, what's the difference? I could go work at Lincoln PD. They're cool. Yeah, they're not as cool as us, you know. And we got like airplanes and police dogs. Well, they have police dogs. Everybody loves police dogs, right? I mean, they're cute and they're cuddly and all that. But they also drool and they shed all over the place and they smell really bad. But other than that, they're really cool, okay? But we have the advantage, I think, this is my recruiting pitch, in a state organization like ours, you can work in a number of different places. If you want to drive over the same pothole every day, you could work in an urban setting. If you want to spread out a little bit and go out, you work in a rural area, that's cool. Policing's a little bit different out there. But it's, you do a traffic stop and 15 cows come up next to the fence and start mooing at you. You don't get to see that downtown. That's kind of cool. And we have different divisions where you can be a road trooper today, spend a few years there. You can go over to investigations. You can work homicides. You can work drugs. You can work all kinds of crimes, white-collar crime, blue-collar crime. Is there such a thing? I don't know who makes up these terms. But there's a lot of variety that we have to offer that some agencies don't necessarily have to offer. So, but we're basically looking at people, they want to help, they want to serve. Sometimes it's kind of cool like on TV. Most of the time it's not. Sometimes it can be boring. A lot of times it's not. So that's my recruiting spiel. So you know where to find us? I should know what the website is, but Nebraska State Patrol, you can Google it. There's a whole thing on there on recruiting. Other questions?
So related to your hiring, what advice or things would you tell our students that they should do, through their education and while they're here to kind of put themselves in a good position? Great.
Excellent question. So education is obviously very important. You have to be able to read and write and communicate. Very important for a law enforcement officer. You got to be able to relate to people. So if you're looking for a job like on campus or off campus, just so you got to pay the bills, try to find something related to customer service. And even if maybe that's not your thing, you're not real comfortable, maybe you're more of an introvert, 2/3 of the population are extroverts, a third are introverts. We don't say we only hire extroverts, right? I mean, my son is an introvert and he said, hey, introverts rule the world. Well, tell me more. Don't need to. Yeah. Oh, I kind of get it now, yeah. So, but get a job where, if you can, where you're interacting with people honing your communication skills, because sometimes you are going to deal with people who are in crisis, oftentimes, and you need to communicate clearly with them, maintaining a calm demeanor. Sometimes you have to talk people into or out of doing things that they're committed to doing, right? And you have to kind of get them, talk some sense into them, right? It could be a suicidal person. It could be a person who's about to commit a crime or is in the act of committing a crime. You might have to talk somebody who's like a foot taller than you and 80 pounds heavier than you into handcuffs. That's a little frightening. I've had to do that, you know. So you have to be a good communicator. So work on your communication skills. The other thing, you have to have a clean record, right? Most of the people who wash out in the background aren't washed out because they're imperfect, because we're not looking for perfect people. There's no such thing. But we are looking for honest people. Yeah, I kind of got busted for drinking underage, right? You know? Okay, that happens. Now, if it happened 10 times, yeah, we're probably not going to hire you, right? That's a pattern of conduct that, like, come on, that's not going to work. But if it happens a time or two, we're like, okay, maybe we'll let that slide. Even marijuana, you know, I remember my spiel about marijuana, okay? But back in the old days, if you had ever, like, smoked marijuana, nope, we're not hiring that person. Yeah, there's almost no such thing anymore. Okay, everybody's tried it, experimented with it. I'm not giving you a green light, all right? But so we've had to say, okay, they haven't used marijuana in the last 5 years. All right, well, we can find people that fit that bill. Theft, felonies, no, you're done. Because, you know, we have to send people into people's homes, businesses. We trust them with confidential information. You can't have people who are dishonest or who steal, habitual liars, got fired from 5 previous jobs because they punched their supervisor. Yeah, that's not going to work for us. All right, so clean record, not perfect, but, you know, just don't get in trouble. And don't be a crazy driver and have all kinds of tickets and accidents, because, you know, we're going to give you like 400 horsepower worth of cop car and say, go drive it. You know, we don't want you to crash into anybody. That would be bad. So little things like that. Excellent question, though. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about everything that you carry and what each pen means?
Everything that I carry. Okay, well, first of all, I have my wallet, so the average married male has $8 in his pocket at any one time. So I'm bringing down the average today. No, okay, here's the deal. So yeah, we carry a gun, right? Okay, carry a sidearm. This is a Glock 45 if you're into guns, okay. Keys, you know, got to be able to start the car. These are extra bullets. We carry them in magazines, you know, this is called a magazine. So extra bullets. I've never had to use them all in one day. No, I'm just kidding. You know, you have to have extra bullets, I guess, okay. Radio, okay, so I can, you know, call mission control and let them know what I'm up to. This is a flashlight. Now, I'm kind of into flashlights, right? This flashlight is very bright, okay? Because it's scary at night and it's dark, all right? So you have to have a bright flashlight, okay? I don't have a taser. You guys have probably seen tasers on TV. If you ever get zapped with a taser, you'll never want to do it again, okay? All right? And, of course, handcuffs, you know. One of my officers I ran into the other day, and I said, hey, Bill, can I borrow your handcuffs? Well, sure, why? Apparently you haven't been using them lately, so what do you say you get back to work and do some stuff, okay? I was giving him a hard time, all right? So that's what I have. Is this being recorded? Okay, so I do wear a vest. It's a policy. It's part of the uniform. You have to wear a vest, you know. And I carry, of course, my iPhone in my pocket, right? Because, you know, what cop could be effective without an iPhone? Some carry Androids. They're weird, but I let them, okay? And what else was the question? Oh, the pin. Well, this is the insignia for where I work, NSP, you know, NSP, cool, right? Of course, badge, right? Name tag, serving since 1986, again, before most of you were born, really sad. And this is our rank. So my rank is colonel, which means I'm the boss, but don't worry, every boss has a boss, okay? So that's kind of the uniform. And we try to take pride in the uniform, make sure, you know, you have it dry, clean, make it look good, because we're representing our agency to the public, and we want to project that professional, competent image like we talked about before. So, good question, though. No, we don't have Casual Friday. Okay.
What is your opinion on gun regulation and giving teachers in school guns?
Ooh. Was this being recorded again? No. Well, gun regulation, we have a lot of gun regulations. So really you're asking about gun control, right? And really the definition is the devil's in the details, right? So we have gun regulations. The question is, do they go far enough? I think there's some room to say, look, are all the people who have mental health challenges in the system that precludes them from buying guns? I think there's some gaps there. So does that mean we have to have some laws to tighten that up? It might be. Now, every state is a little bit different on what gets put into the system, okay? But, you got to balance, right? Remember the Supreme Court said when the government passes a law, they have to have a balancing of interests, okay? The Second Amendment, I don't think it's an accident that the Second Amendment was put in with the other 9 amendments called the Bill of Rights. So we can't just say, well, we don't like that one because it has some potential negative impact, so let's get rid of it. You wouldn't say that about the Fourth Amendment or the First Amendment. So we can say, look, there's a reason why the Second Amendment was placed in the Bill of Rights. It has a high degree of importance. So we have to balance the interests of, well, does the government have a compelling interest to have some regulation over firearms? Well, yeah. I know in Minnesota, if I'm going to go pheasant hunting, I can't have a loaded gun in my car, right? It has to be unloaded and in the case. Now, if I go pheasant hunting in Kansas, I can have a loaded gun in my car. What? Here you can do it, here you can't do it. Every state is different. So how the states apply their gun regulations, the government has a compelling interest to say this is safe, that's not safe. Now let's make it a little more personal. Okay, you have people who love AR-15s, right? Don't take away my AR-15. Don't make it illegal. The state that I lived in, California, said, no bueno, you can't have an AR-15 unless, and there was like 3 exceptions. So everybody that I knew who loved AR-15s had a brother-in-law in Arizona, funny how that worked, who had their AR-15, right? So the laws weren't compatible. Now, personally, I don't have an AR-15. There was one time when I was deer hunting, I wish I had one, because those deer are pretty fast and they run and you can't always get them, right? But I had a bolt action, so chances are, it didn't work out for me. So my opinion is Second Amendment is important. There should be some regulations, which we have. And so your question, I think, is should there be more? Would more regulation prevent a tragedy like in Florida? I don't know. Most criminals that I arrest or have encountered, they were ineligible to possess a firearm anyway, and they had all kinds of guns. So I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all solution to that. So I kind of skirted the question, didn't I? But I don't know. I don't know, because my experience has been the more regulations don't really impact bad guys. They get guns anyway. So the only way to do it would be get rid of all the guns. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's practical. And I wouldn't advocate for that. But it's a thoughtful question. Thank you.
I have a question about another instrument.
Surely.
Drones.
Yeah.
What's the future of drones in the State Patrol?
Well, I can tell you what I think the future of drones is in law enforcement in 10 years. This is a prediction, so you guys are going to go invest in a drone company, but if it goes bust, don't blame me, okay? In 10 years, you're going to have a squad car drive up on a traffic stop, and when they stop, the drone attached to the back of their car is going to go up and videotape the whole thing. That's going to be happening in 10 years, maybe 5, okay? Now, as far as the State Patrol, we're not going to be on the cutting edge of that technology, but we're not going to be late adopters either. And I say that because of the cost of the technology has gone way down. The sophistication of the technology has gone way up. Sounds familiar, like any other technology. And the utility, the use of it, there's a lot of great applications for it. So right now, there's a lot of hesitation by governing bodies like the legislature, the city councils, even Congress. They're a little nervous because a lot of concern about, well, that's like Big Brother, the government watching you from up there. Legitimate concerns, but it gets back to that balancing of interests. So we're nearly ready to get our first drone, which would have a limited use, like searching for lost people, looking for evidence, stuff like that. Because right now we use helicopters for that. Okay, we got helicopters, that's cool. But they cost like $300 an hour to run, and they're expensive to maintain. And we could go down to Walmart and buy a drone. We'd probably buy one cooler than that. But you could buy a drone and accomplish that same mission for a lot less expense. So that's going to be coming to a law enforcement agency near you if it hasn't already. So, sir.
I've heard that when a trooper gets assigned to an area, it's very uncommon for them to relocate later in the career, like choose to relocate. Is that true? Or?
Well, let's see. What are my choices? True, partially true, or totally false? I'm going to go partially true. Okay? And here's the challenge. And we're looking at this from a policy perspective. We're having a hard time recruiting some people, especially I talked about minorities and women, especially people who come from an urban area. They don't want to come work for us if they're going to get stuck out in Scottsbluff. Now, if you're from Scottsbluff, you're like, hey, wait a minute, it's cool out there. Really good goose hunting and deer hunting and fishing. It's like, I'd like to go there, right? So it appeals to different people. So we're trying to recruit people from that local area. So we're trying to recruit people from western Nebraska to stay in western Nebraska. So what happens, we hire a kid from Omaha, they go out to western Nebraska, and as soon as they're eligible to transfer, which is 2 years, they transfer back. And so they constantly have vacancies out there, and the people in western Nebraska are going, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, every time we get a trooper and we get to know them, they get involved in the community, and then they disappear, and we got to get, and so we have all these rookies, you know, which I love rookies, they're great. But I understand their concern. So it is common in some parts of the state for people to transfer out if they don't find it appealing. So I've worked in both very rural areas in my career, and I've worked in very urban areas, and they all have advantages and disadvantages. So the nice thing about an agency like ours is you can move around. If you're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it here, in a couple of years you can transfer to a different part of the state. So if you get assigned near where you grew up or where you have relations, chances are you stay there. So that's kind of been our experience. But good question.
We have time for one last question.
Okay.
Do you guys take radar from the sky? Because I know, like, from the helicopters and stuff, because I know back home we do. And a couple of my friends have actually gotten pulled over, and they asked the cops, like, well, where were you sitting? I didn't see you. And they were like, well, we got you from the sky. And they just have the cops, like, sitting on the, like, overpasses, and then they go down and they get them every time. And,
Those
like, they'll put a
sneaky
certain
little
speed trap
buggers.
on.
Yeah, it's true. We do it. You know, everybody's like, oh, you guys are hiding. That's not fair. Well, you were speeding. How is that fair? You know? I mean, come on. So they actually don't have radar, but they use a clock, a stopwatch. So they have markings on the interstate, right? You probably didn't know what those are. Hey, did somebody spill paint here? No, they have these hash marks on the interstate. And so the airplane or the helicopter, and we have both, they'll be looking at a car, and they'll watch the traffic. You know, doing their thing. You know, it'd make me airsick myself, but, you know, they're doing their thing and they're flying the plane. And, well, that car looks like it's speeding. And so they'll, okay, cross that mark, stopwatch, cross that mark, and that translates into how fast they're going. So time, distance, right? It's a math thing, right? So you got to be kind of good at math if you're going to be a pilot. I hope my pilots are good at math. So yeah, it's a little trick, right? So the best way to get out of a ticket, don't speed, okay? Little known advice, all right? Don't want to get a DUI? Don't drive drunk. Hey, that's innovative, all right? So thanks a lot for your time and attention. I'll stick around for the cookies and punch and what else? Tacos, pizza, what do we got?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right, thanks guys.
Thanks for coming, and